So, I loved how you said that you were entranced by how she created lightness and heaviness, a tightness and a looseness that made you feel ripped open and whole again. And you don't even remember saying that.
No, no, I was just thinking, God, I wish I said that.
Yeah, but you know what?
Okay.
I think not only did you say it, but I think you write it. And I think that's what makes your characters so relatable. And especially Jane, she's a hot mess. And every time she has a disaster happen, something else happens that rescues her, kind of.
Yeah.
And so it felt like the same sort of dichotomy that you saw in Nora Ephron. So I guess you kind of almost have answered the question. How so you do you intentionally create that tug of war with your character, or is it just organic because you know her so well?
I think that humor and darkness are like two sides of the same coin. I really do. And I generally think the funniest people I've ever known are also the darkest people I've ever known. I think that's true. I like it in fiction. I like in fiction when we're feeling light and then there's like reality to ground us in it so that we feel the lightness a little bit more. Like I just love that push and pull. Jane is may I just say what the book's about?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
has anybody read this book? Hillary's read it, that's for sure.
Twice.
So Jane is a former teen star who she was in a show where it was all like a bunch of kids in high school who get together and form a band, and then they're suddenly like big pop stars. You know, always happens in high school to a lot of people. And she's the person in the show who's like the punchline. She's in the background. She's like going to sit down on the plate of nachos, and then everybody's going to laugh. Now she's all grown up, and she's trying to make it as a producer in Hollywood. And so that's the beginning of the story. She's about to get her first project greenlit. Everything's looking really great. And the whole thing falls apart. And she tells a huge lie just to buy herself a little bit of time. And basically has to figure out a way to make the lie true. And the only way she can do that is with help of Dan Finnegan, who she cannot stand, who is my favorite guy in the entire world. Anyways, she approaches her life and solving this problem and everything she does, like with a script, like she's a person who grew up on TV. And as soon as she's in any situation, she just like says a bunch of crazy stuff and loses her temper. She is literally the most unhinged character that I've ever written. And she's funny. And she thinks that guys won't date her because she's funny. Like guys don't like funny women. I happen to believe that. And so she does everything she can to not be funny. And so there is like this darkness behind her because she's like keeping it all in.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the juxtaposition that makes her so round. There's a scene early that she recalls in the book of when she's on this show and she's 13, 14, however, maybe she's 15 at that point. And she's always been the butt of all the jokes. She's the goofy one with the braces who sits on the nachos. And she has a moment where she's looking in the mirror and she starts singing a song that's going to be in the show. And she realizes that she's beautiful and that she is more than the butt of the joke. And it's this first empowering moment for her to realize, I don't have to be just that. I can be something else.
Yeah.
And then she goes and does something
stupid
that embarrasses the hell out of her. And I think she can never recover from that.
No.
That defines pretty much the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So she you said, a script. She adheres to a script, it seems to me, of what she thinks other people expect from her.
She is trying to, and she's also very careful with what she wears. She's very particular in every situation that she's wearing the right thing for the occasion. She's trying to dress herself up and pretend to be a person who deserves to be in the world. She has just like such a deep sense of unworthiness. It was sometimes like, I was like, is this too much? Is anybody going to relate to her? And what's been really
there's her dad too. That's a big part of it.
Yes, and she doesn't have a father. But I was kind of worried that this, like, she's so unhinged that people would be like, I can't relate to this. This has been the most relatable character that I've ever, like, I'm getting the most feedback that people are like, I feel so seen.
And then raise your hand if you're unhinged.
Right? I know. I was like, I'm sorry. I thought it was just me. I didn't know. No. Like everybody's unhinged.
We've been waiting for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
Let's talk about Dan a little bit.
I could talk about Dan forever.
He's so quiet and he's an observer, and he's guided by his heart, whereas Jane is guided by what she thinks people want by this script, right? So they're so opposite, and there's that magnetic force, that draws magnets together, but turn it a little bit and it deflects them apart again.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you create that sort of tension without it sounding stereotypical, like you don't expect their relationship to take a lot of the turns it does. It doesn't seem to follow a typical romance format. They like each other, they don't like each other, they like each other,
Yeah.
So about opposites attract, is that something that you kind of have to have in a rom-com like this?
No, not at all. And I think that the book I'm writing right now, they're the exact same people. And it's very difficult to be in a relationship with somebody who is like the exact same people. And that's actually the problem. They're so much alike. I had the two of them moving through this story like in several drafts where my editor kept saying to me, why do they like each other? I'm like, they're both attractive. What? What do you want from me, woman? And I really had to like look at what I could feel what it was between them, but I didn't really understand what it was. And Dan is, he's a guy who knows who he is. Like, he doesn't have health insurance, and like, he is not like the guy you're going after for marriage. But he knows who he is, and he like totally respects his talent. And she has no idea who she is. And so it's like through this process where he's kind of accepting himself and she's sort of learning a different way to live. But I don't think it's necessary. I don't think you have to have that in romance. Everybody has to get something from the other.
Doesn't have that.
It could be a total flop. But we have to feel like at the end that they're both better for having the relationship. To me, that's the most satisfying thing. It's not like, oh, yay, now I have a boyfriend. I don't know if you've ever had a boyfriend. It's not always the best thing. So everybody has to be better.
So Dan has this exuberant, crazy family. Nora grows up basically.
She said Nora. Do you know that Hillary is also the audiobook narrator for Nora Goes Off Script?
Sorry. I love her too.
Can I say something about that?
Yeah.
Okay, just like as an aside. So she was the audiobook narrator for Nora Goes Off Script. And then my next two books, they said, well, we should have different narrators for every book. And so they picked two great narrators for the other books. And then it occurred to somebody that my percentage sales of audiobooks are higher for Nora Goes Off Script than any of my other books. And I just got an email one day, should we have Hillary Huber back? And I was like, yes, we should. Yes. Yeah. So
okay, so back to Dan.
Yeah. No, I could talk about Dan.
So Jane grows up basically an only child with a single parent.
Yeah.
And compared to Dan's incredibly exuberant family, he's one of 5 boys, and they're loud and they're messy
and they're handsome,
and every last one is handsome. And she wants his people. Now I know Dan's people specifically. You didn't grow up in a raucous family necessarily, but you made one. She has 3 boys.
I do.
And so are they your inspo for how they react?
No, my family, we're not that like as adults, we're not that raucous. I mean, as toddlers, they were maniacs. But I had been thinking about Dan's family from way before I even conceived this book. I've been around these families in my life. Tell me if you have too, where like everybody just walks in insulting each other and it's funny. Like, oh, sorry about your hair.
Like ours.
Who'd you steal that dress from? Like, and everybody's laughing, and then everybody sits down at dinner, and the first thing they do is tell the most embarrassing story about somebody. Like that kind of a family, I'm like fascinated by that because everybody feels like they belong. Like there's nobody that's left out with being insulted. It's the difference between like, oh, hi. That quiet thing in families where there's this big thing that's unsaid, and that is so loud to me. So I just wanted, it had nothing to do with the story, but I wanted Dan to have that family because I wanted to write them. And then there's so many parts of writing a book that are really hard. Every scene with Dan's family, I wrote it in one take, like no notes.
Wow.
It was just so easy. They all walked in with their personalities. I think I'd been thinking about it for a long time. Like it was just percolating back there. But they're a really warm family. He has really loving parents. They love each other. And
he's so different from them all.
He's the black sheep of the family because he's an introvert. He's very quiet. And the whole time when he was growing up, they're like, oh, weirdo needs his quiet time. You know, they used to make fun of him about it. But he doesn't care. He's like, and I think he says to her at some point, you've read it more recently than I have, that, you know, it's like they don't need to understand him. They just need to love him. Like he knows his family loves him. They think it's nuts that he lives in Hollywood trying, like with a camera, trying to be a cinematographer. So, but they love him.
I love that there's a line where one of them says, you know, we never see you. When are you coming back from California? And he says something like, well, there's no passports required.
No, it's legal to cross the border out of Long Island.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because they all live like together in Long
Island. You might have noticed our dresses.
Yeah, this is an accident.
This is an accident. You bring a lot of dresses when you go on these tours.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Jane understands the importance. She's got specific date dresses. Do you believe in the power of the dress?
I do. I have always felt like I remember when I was in business school and I'd have a really hard test, I would be like, I'm going to blow my hair dry. And then I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to kill it. It's like just putting on a costume. Mm-hmm. It's like when little kids put on a cape and they think they're a superhero. I kind of do. I believe in the power of like putting something on. Like sometimes I wear things of my mother's and I'm like, I have that energy about me. So yeah. I mean, she wears clothes because she's trying to be Reese Witherspoon. Like she goes on a date and she's like, I just want to look kissable and grandma worthy. Like Reese Witherspoon. Because she has no idea who she is. And so then she goes to Long Island with Dan and she brings all the wrong things. Like she doesn't bring a bathing suit. She has to buy a bathing suit at the tacky tourist store. It's 2 sizes too big.
Is she sure it was the same suit Eleanor Roosevelt would have worn?
Yes. She wears Eleanor Roosevelt. It's on the cover. That's Eleanor Roosevelt's childhood bathing suit right there.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There was some. Okay. So let's talk about her mom a little bit. Okay. Jane is worried for her mom, and she wishes that she had a sister to share that worry. And really, it's Jane who we all need to be worried about, not her mom. And it just made me think, as a parent, the last thing we want is for our kids to worry about us.
Oh, the worst,
right? It's the worst. If that mom knew how worried, if her mom knew how worried she was, she'd be so crushed. You know, we're adults. We've got this. Is what we're supposed to think.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of answered the question. I mean, it's do you think that she's misplacing that worry because she doesn't want to worry about herself?
I think she isn't self-aware enough to worry about herself, until 2/3 of the way through the novel. I think she's like, I got it. I've got this. I've got it. And if she doesn't have it, she gets under her desk at work and eats miniature candy bars and cries under her desk. Like that's what she does.
She eats Pop-Tarts and candy, which I love too, especially for those of us from LA.
I know. I'm like, this book is never going to fly in Santa Monica. None of this stuff is organic.
None of it's organic.
This was not an organic Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
But her mother, when she was growing up, her mother believes in really believes in love. And so she'd go on a couple dates. She'd come home and be like, Jane, this is it. And then 2 weeks later, she's sobbing in the fetal position. She's been dumped. She's heartbroken. And Jane would kind of have to nurse her back to happiness. She saw so much of that growing up that she just thinks her mother's eternal belief in love is misguided. And then the script that she's trying to make is like a different kind of love. And it speaks to her. And it's just kind of a quiet thing in the story. And she says she wishes that her mother could have read the movie she did.
That's right. To see that other kind of love.
Yeah.
So that makes me think of something else, which is this. It's fun for me to read this book because I've known Annabelle for over 30 years. And so I see little, I call them Easter eggs, things that are familiar to me, like her mother's optimism, which reminds me of your mother's optimism. Everything was always going to be okay. It was going to be better than okay. It was going to be perfect.
It's going to be great.
Even the mention of the perfect thin pancake with crispy edges, which somebody right back there is famous for making.
Yeah. You know what? I was actually thinking about you with your pancakes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pop's Pancakeys, Annabelle.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny.
So, okay, well, yeah. So there was one other thing, and then there was a question coming out of it. The other thing was the title of the movie that she's making in the book is True Story. And so I wondered, I have a reason for that with my sister-in-law, Annabelle's sister, where that comes from. And I asked Annabelle, what's the genesis of True Story? I think we all share it.
It's my husband. So my husband says, like, I will return from the grocery store. This is perfect example. And I will say, wow, I went to the checkout counter and the line was a little bit long. Then I switched to a different checkout counter and it was better. And then he says, true story? Like, the dumber the thing I said, like, the most, like, why would you tell someone that? Like, what?
That's how we know it's time to get off the phone.
Yeah.
One of us will say something, they'll go, true story.
True
We're like,
story.
okay, bye.
Yeah. So True Story is the name of the movie that she's making. And it's this woman has lost her husband and she's writing a romance that's loosely based on their really beautiful relationship. But it's like the kind of love where they fight, they make up, and there's like, it's just like really real and raw. And so it was a true story. So I wanted to name the whole book True Story. And then it went to, I think it was the Penguin Random House sales force was like, it sounds like true crime. Like, it doesn't sound like a romance. So then my editor came up with it's a love story. I'm not good with titles. My titles never stick.
Is that common? Do most authors come up with that?
I don't know. Allison, do you come up with your titles? Sometimes? Yeah. That's Allison Winscott. She's a big deal. Yeah. No, Nora Goes Off Script was the Tea House, and everyone said, wow, that sounds like a sad movie from China. And I was like, I don't think it does. So yeah, I'm not good at titles.
Okay, so speaking of love stories,
Yes.
The ultimate love story movie, The Notebook, features very prominently in this.
And I apologize. I was
Notebook.
just going to mention it once, and then I ran with it.
Okay, so love The Notebook? Indifferent about The Notebook?
I love The Notebook.
Okay.
I'm a normal person, emotionally healthy. Has everybody in this room seen The Notebook?
Love The Notebook.
Normal people love The Notebook. I mean, come on. So Jane does not like The Notebook. Dan loves The Notebook, and their first epic fight. And when they fight, Dan's like a person. Jane gets to be like a toddler with fists, and she's just fighting. And so I had so much fun writing those arguments that I did a deep dive into The Notebook.
I mean, there's so many references.
I watched it a bunch of times. I looked up things about The Notebook. People have really strong negative feelings about that movie. Like, for example, those geese, the swans that were in the lake when it was raining, they had to raise the swans in that lake so that they would stay there in a tame way so that they could make out in the rain. I think it was totally worth it. I have no problem with that. There are people who are super offended by the fact that they did that. The only real thing about The Notebook, and Jane says this, I totally agree, is like, wouldn't Allie have just gone to the post office one time in a year to be like, is there mail for me? Anyways, yes, I probably watched that movie 5 times while I was writing this book.
I mean, I want to watch it again now.
Yeah, I couldn't stop. It felt really fun.
So I narrated another book earlier this year called The Almost True Story of Jane and Dan.
You mean Jane and Dan at the End of the World?
I mean Jane and Dan at the End of the World. That's the almost true story of Tanner and Louise.
Same author. That was Colleen Oakley.
Yep. Jane and Dan at the End of the World, and
which I loved, by the way. If you haven't read that book, it is so good.
It's really good. And so I'm I was like, oh my God, Jane and Dan, Dan and Jane. And Annabelle, you said, I know. And I thought about changing my characters' names when I found out that her book was coming out first, but I couldn't.
Yeah, it was too late.
But so too late because of your own, yeah. I mean, you can't just change your character's name, right?
Like she's Janie Jakes on her show, and then
Yeah.
at the end of the show they say poor Janie. Do. It can't be like poor Ruthie. Like I couldn't change that. And then there is literally the dumbest joke in the book is she gets mad at Dan and she's thinking, Dan, stupid Dan, hit him in the face with a pan. It's like the dumbest toddler joke. I couldn't cut it. I'm like, he has to be named Dan so I can say that. It was just, it's so funny. You just get really vested in things. And so, anyways, Colleen Oakley and I are trying to make this the summer of Dane and Jan. We make the hashtag all the time. No one picks it up. It's not going anywhere.
We're trying desperately.
We're trying really hard.
It's not happening.
But what are the chances? She said she picked those names because they're the most boring names she could think of. And I was like,
I hope nobody here is named Jane.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're a beautiful Jane.
I've seen a bunch of reviews of this book, and this is exactly what I felt when I read it. It's such a slow burn romance. I mean, it takes a long time for this thing to develop. You're like, just let's go already. Let's go. And my favorite scene, thwarted. They get thwarted, right? That's what happens in a romance that can't consummate. Is how can you thwart this? And I love it. They get thwarted because a brother and a wife have to spend the night, and they all have to sleep in the same room. So there's a set of bunk beds, and the wife is sleeping in the one single bed, and Jane's on top, and Dan is on the bottom. And they've just started to really realize they do like each other / love each other, but they're certainly attracted to each other.
It's painful.
It's painful.
I apologize in advance.
No, it's so good. And they're sleeping on these bunk beds, but she's lying on her bed and he's just standing there with his face. And you say he was perpendicular to me, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what my question is, but I guess it's about right. Because it was so you're like, oh, get her out of there.
Yeah.
How hard is it to do that and make it believable and not feel contrived, I guess, because it doesn't feel contrived. It feels real. All of the interruptions feel real.
Well, thank you. I was about to say that's the hardest part. I could say 5 things are the hardest part. So one of the hardest parts is making sure that the physical development between them corresponds with the emotional arc and that the emotional arc is smooth. Like sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I like him so much. Like it has to be on a rising thing. So having the physical thing not happen too soon. I think in a first draft, I always have it happen immediately. And then I have to move it way back. It's hard to orchestrate. And there isn't a formula to it. Like I wish it could be contrived.
Okay, so I took a writing class once and romance.
I should totally do that.
Well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. But she gave us this guideline for contact. It starts with eye to eye. Next is eye to body part. Next, I'll send it to you.
I want this so bad.
Yes, eye to eye to body part. Not all at the same time, but you just put these, and then hand to hand is the next touch, and then hand to body, and then mouth to mouth, and then whatever happens after that. I don't know.
Well, I was in conversation on Friday night with my editor in Raleigh. She was there. And we had the crowd laughing so hard. She came out with it. She's like, Annabelle is so bad at physical choreography. She's like, it's a joke. Like,
how long did it take you to write the first love scene in Nora?
The love scene in Nora. The love scene is about a paragraph. Like you might miss it. You might be like, wait, did something happen here? It took me 3 weeks. 3 weeks to get that right. I don't know maybe it's because I'm physically uncoordinated, but I just it doesn't come that naturally to me. I have to do it over and over.
I get that.
Yeah, sorry. Not everything's easy.
And my daughter was going to listen, and she asked Stephanie, Annabelle's sister, I was thinking of listening to my mom read this, but do they kiss? And Stephanie, is there kissing? And Stephanie's like, do you mean is there sex, Ella? She's like, I don't want to hear my mom read that.
But you do have to, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you read? Have you read
skip over
super
those.
spicy books?
I've read a couple, but I'm not known for that much. But I have, yeah.
Yeah, and you just like
You just have to.
you just plow
It's just
through.
like reading a murder scene. You just have to.
Yeah, it's so much like that, really. Yeah.
I just don't want my son to listen to it either.
Oh God. Yeah, he doesn't want to listen to it.
No,
either.
he does not.
No, he does
Right.
not.
What are you working on now?
So I am writing a book that it's basically like Pretty Woman without the hookers, because I have standards and I'm a lady. So it's about a woman who works at her father's fish shop. Oh, Uncle Bobby.
See, there's
My-
another Easter egg.
My uncle is a fishmonger. Anyway, so she works in her dad's fish shop, and for a variety of reasons that I swear to God make total sense, she is hired to pretend to be the girlfriend of the heir to this big real estate fortune. And it happens right in a made-up town next to Newport, Rhode Island. It doesn't geographically make any sense because there wouldn't be another town there, but there is now. And it's the mansions and the cliff walk, and it's set in that setting. And I will say that if you think about tropes, which I don't usually think about tropes when I'm writing, this is fake dating, which I think is the stupidest trope that there is. Because who here has ever been on a fake date? Right? Like, oh, pretend to be my fiance at my family's wedding because it's so stupid. For whatever reason, when I pick those books up, I will stay up all night reading them. It's my favorite thing. If I get a whiff of fake dating, it's like catnip to me. So because it's the touching. It's like, oh, now we have to hold hands, and I can't stand you.
Which is so awkward.
But then there's a little something. There's just so much up. I just love it. I'm having so much fun with it. I love it. So that's what I'm.
Okay.
Do you guys have questions? Yes.
So you said a little bit about the names of Jane and Dan being sort of bland. How do you go about naming your characters? And do you have a process that you use?
I don't. It's process of elimination. So I come up with people who I haven't dated, who my children aren't friends with, who I haven't given birth to. Like, I'm running out of names. It's really hard. And a lot of times in signing lines with, they put the Post-it on the book and I'm signing books, I take a stack of Post-its home with me, just randomly. So I have a stack of names to look at because I choke. Like, everybody would have the same name in a book.
Well, it's like naming a baby.
It's hard. It's really hard. The other thing that I have a really hard time with is last names, because last names give information of like ethnicity and like where you're from and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not necessarily trying to tell that story. So I end up writing like everybody has a name like Monaghan, like the Finnegans. I have a hard time coming up with names. Also, sometimes when I'm watching Netflix, I wait for the credits and I just pull a name out of there.
So good.
Who else?
So Nora and It's Love Story, they have like a Hollywood sort of through line, right?
Yep.
So I'm kind of curious because you're from here. And is that because you're from here? Because it's on the other side usually too. Like Janie doesn't work on the camera side of things, and nor did it work on the camera side of things. So I'm just kind of curious, like what your connection is with your own personal.
Yeah, so I grew up here. My family is not in show business at all, as far as I know. Nobody, right? But there is something about living here. It's like you're kind of soaking in it. It's like if you live in Washington, D.C., you can't help but know a little bit about politics. So there's that. But also, I think that Hollywood is interesting to write about because it's an aspirational thing. We all, like little kids, are like, I want to be a movie star. And it's this thing that everybody thinks is sort of above them. And there's a part of it that seems like it might be a little bit empty. So it just seems like a really good opportunity for drama. like somebody who has everything but doesn't have everything. I like and thinking that that's the thing you really want for yourself. Like, oh, if I could only be a star, and then of course you become a star and you still feel the same way that you felt about. Yeah. So it just feels like an aspirational thing that there's an opportunity to work with there. But probably definitely. And then I have a couple of friends here who are in Hollywood business. And I called them extensively to discuss this book. And they gave me copious notes on all these things that I did not understand. And so I just took like 5% of it and it got in the book. Like it's all very complicated. So I did my best. Yes.
Okay, hopefully I asked this right. How do you find a good balance between making sure that you're showing enough of like the emotion of your character, like the inner journey that they're going through and their struggles, without making it feel like they're trauma dumping on us, or that the whole book has become about this inner struggle that they're having?
So in the back, just because she's up here, the question is, how do you balance talking about the inner struggles that your characters are going through without trauma dumping on your audience? I can't stay dark for very long. It's just my way. Like I tried to write a thriller one time and I'm like cracking jokes. Like I just can't, I can't really go that, I can't hold on to that for very long. And that's not the kind of book that I write. So I will just dip my brush in it and put it a little bit in there. And I think it's all I'm comfortable with. And it's when I go to reread a draft of a book to see what needs to happen, it's like, how am I feeling while I'm reading it? Like I'm taking your temperature. How is my reader going to feel? And I don't want you to feel traumatized. So I just, if I came across that and I was like, wow, this is so traumatic, I'd pull it out. Thank you.
I need to ask about the title, of course, being a reference, possibly, or at least the same as a Taylor Swift song.
Yes.
Whether or not that played in, and if there's any connection, and also congratulations to Taylor for owning her entire library.
Don't you love her?
Shout out to our women taking control up there.
I know. It's so great. She also bought the rights to this book. No, I'm just kidding. I couldn't even hold that for 1 second. Like as fast as it came out of my mouth, I was like, never mind. That's a joke. Yeah. So I think that my editor came up with this title and she was like, this is so fun. It's a love story. And I say it in the book and she's like, let's use this as the title. And she's like, it's kind of like that Taylor Swift song. And then that was so fun. I do get tired of making reels to that song. Like the song, I've maybe killed the song. But yes, that was definitely deliberate. She had a Nick.
I don't know if I'm going to word this question properly, but you've written multiple love stories now, obviously. Do you think there are any interesting potential romantic pairings from characters from one book with characters from a different book in an alternate universe?
Yes. Okay. So when I finish a book, I am like, see you later, like house guests, like goodbye. I just don't, I have to move on to the next thing. And I stop, they leave my mind. But Dan's older brother, Brian, is very appealing. And he's the only single one. And I was thinking, I don't think I'll ever do this, but I was thinking it would be fun if he had a relationship with her best friend, Clem, who's a really cool person. She's a geriatric nurse and a bartender. Tends to human frailty. I don't know. I like her, but I don't think I would. I don't really like revisiting stuff. I don't like sequels. And I'd like to go to a new place like that, finding that. And also I take a free vacation every year. Like last year we went to Newport because I was writing a new book. So I kind of like to stay fresh.
Have any of your books been optioned?
So the question is, have any of my books been optioned? So Nora Goes Off Script has been optioned. I think I know there are maybe 10 months left on that option. So what that means is that he has 10 months to get a script and he has talent that's interested and find the studio and start filming. And then if that doesn't happen, then I get the rights back. And It's the Love Story is going out into the world now. There was a lot of interest in Same Time Next Summer, which I think is interesting because I think it might be because it would be so cheap to make that movie. Like if I rented an Airbnb for $600, I could do it on my iPhone. Like they're just on the beach the whole time. Like, oh, should we go in the water? Let's get out of the water. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a funny thing. I definitely don't understand Hollywood, but Hollywood goes like, yeah, and then you wait for like a really long time. So, and then sometimes things happen really fast. Yes, Rita.
Yes, I had a question about your meet cutes in your stories, which I really enjoyed. And I was wondering, in this one, was there an inspiration behind the hawk and the photo taking? Like, did you read that story in the newspaper? Or like?
No. So the question is about the meet cute in this story. She meets Dan for the first time. He's crossing the street and he's taking a photograph of a hawk that's perched on a billboard. It is the most random meet cute that you could ever conceive of. I have no idea where that came from. I was typing and I was like, that's a hawk on the thing? There was no inspiration for that. And then they like each other and then they certainly don't like each other later. But no, it just was like a spontaneous. Well,
But we had the bird wrangler.
oh yes, it was. It was. That is random. That is. We were at a Zibby retreat together in Scottsdale, Arizona, and there was somebody just walking around with it wasn't a hawk. Was it a hawk? It was a hawk. It was a falcon. Yeah, with a glove on his hand. Yeah, no, I had finished the book by then. Yeah, that is weird. That is. Well, yes.
You said a couple times how much you like certain characters that you've written. I'm curious if you have a favorite across all of the novels you've written, and if it's hard to compare, to contrast, or to try to just like leave them behind and go for someone new.
You know, every book is so different that it is hard to say. I will say that writing Jane Jackson was the most fun that I've ever had writing, just because she's so bananas. I mean, it was just like to lose my temper that many times while I was writing. It just felt like kind of good. It felt like a cleanse. Like she just gets so mad. But I would say if I had to pick a character that I like the best, it would be Phyllis from Summer Romance, the old lady who lives next door to her. And I don't know. I just kind of gave her a lot of my sensibilities. We're not so sure about Dr. Phil, two of us. Anyways, yeah, I really liked Phyllis. Like and every time I went in that book, every time we went to Phyllis's house, I felt like I was on a break. Like, oh, Phyllis is here. She's going to tell us what's up.
She'll take care of us.
Else? Yes.
You've had a lot of different backgrounds in writing, teaching, writing, short stories, young adult, this kind of book, romance. Do you feel like you approach writing from a different place when you write these different kinds of books? Like, is the process different for you? How do you feel when you get into these sorts of, different temperatures of water?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I write essays, which I did for 10 years, I wrote them every 2 weeks. I made $30 a week doing that, to brag. I did, and I was so proud. I would put my check like down on the counter, like mommy's making money. Those were so satisfying because they were like 600, 700 words, and they would be done. And I would toil literally for my $300. I worked really hard on those essays. Ridiculous, actually. But it was just like, and then you have this little package, and it goes out into the world. Writing long form and writing fiction is more of just being like absolutely not afraid to fail. So that's how it feels to me. Like I sit down and I write the worst book I could possibly write just to get a story out there so that I have something to work with. And I know that that's the process. So I'm not like second guessing myself. And it's just kind of free. Then when you have the mess, this is like when you don't put your closet away nicely and then you have to clean it out. Now I'm in the place where I'm cleaning up my mess. I'm trying to finish a book. And that's a whole process, but it feels very free to write fiction. Oh, Ken?
When you're in the mess, do you send it to your editor or do you take it a couple times yourself?
I send her a mess. I send her a mess. Yeah, she loves me. And then she doesn't give me like an editorial letter back on that. She basically, the first mess that she gets, she says why like 300 times. Like if you want access to my editor, just say why to yourself 300 times. Like, why do they like each other? Why did she choose that job? Why does her mother feel that way? Why did her dad? Like all the why, what,
Like having a 3-year-old.
it is. It is. And then I'm like, oh, I know. I'll be right back. And then I go and make a better draft. And then she has like crazy insightful things. Yeah, it's a messy process. Yes.
Yeah, so we talk about clothes. So when you're writing fiction, do you wear a particular clothes to get in the mood in writing?
It's such a good question. Do I wear particular clothes to write? Yeah. I do not. I wear my pajamas. That's a great question. But do you wear something like?
No, I wear something that doesn't make noise. Not a lot of starch, right?
Oh, I wouldn't
And
think of
nothing
that.
too binding.
Yeah. I like to sit in a certain chair. I like to light a